Chapter 7. The Unholy Alliance. The pressure in the artifact storage room changed the moment Alice stepped out of the coffin. It wasn't the crushing weight of killing intent. Not anymore. It was something heavier, sadder. It was the weight of 5 centuries of silence crashing down all at once. Izuku Midoriya stood his ground, though his danger sense was humming like a plucked wire against the base of his skull. Beside him, Bahadur gripped the hilt of his sword, his knuckles white. The paladin wasn't reacting to a threat to his life, but to the sheer, unnatural presence of the girl. Alice stumbled. Her bare foot slipped on the smooth metal floor, her legs trembling under her own weight. She caught herself on the edge of the coffin, her breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. 500 years, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the bunker's ventilation. He actually did it. She looked up at Izuku. Her red eyes were dull, lacking the vibrancy they likely held in her prime. Dracula? I cannot believe he actually took that ridiculous title. He rules over the wasteland outside, Izuku said, keeping his voice steady. He claims to be the lord of all vampires. Alice let out a dry, humorless laugh. Lord? Nicholas couldn't even lead a horse to water without asking for directions. And now, he plays king in a castle built on my blood. She pushed herself off the coffin, trying to stand tall, but her knees buckled. She was starving. Not the kind of hunger that could be fixed with a sandwich, but a deep, metaphysical hollowness. Bahadur stepped forward, his instinct to help overriding his prejudice against the undead. She is weak. Izuku, whatever power she holds, it is fading. I am not fading, Alice snapped, though the lack of force in her voice betrayed her. She leaned heavily against the shelves, knocking over a display case of ancient daggers. I just need a moment. Izuku watched her. He saw the way her eyes darted to the pulsing veins in his neck, then immediately jerked away, as if ashamed of the instinct. She wasn't a monster looking for a meal. She was a person fighting her own biology. He made a decision. Inventory open. He scrolled past his weapons and materials. He didn't have much in the way of supplies for a vampire, but he remembered a specific item he had bought by mistake during a mystery box sale years ago. Item: high-grade blood potion. Description: synthetic blood substitute. Restores HP and satiety for vampiric entities. Tastes like iron and regret. Here, Izuku said, retrieving the vial. It glowed with a deep crimson light. Alice flinched when he moved, but when she smelled the contents, her eyes widened. Is that? It's not real blood, Izuku clarified quickly. It's a substitute. Synthetic. No one had to die for it. Alice stared at the vial, then at Izuku. A look of genuine surprise crossed her face. You carry this? Why? I keep a lot of things. Izuku lied smoothly. You need it more than I do. Take it. He tossed the vial gently. Alice caught it with a dexterity that belied her exhaustion. She didn't hesitate. She uncorked it and downed the liquid in a single gulp. She grimaced, sticking her tongue out. By the ancients, that is foul. It tastes like rusted copper and chemicals. It gets the job done. Izuku shrugged. Color rushed back into Alice's cheeks. The trembling in her legs stopped. She stood up straight, smoothing down the front of her white dress. It was pristine, untouched by the rot of time, likely preserved by the same magic that held the seal. It will suffice, Alice said, wiping her mouth. She looked at Izuku, then at Bahadur. Her gaze lingered on the paladin's holy symbol. A necromancer and a paladin, walking together. I must still be dreaming. We represent the Pure Syndicate, Izuku said. And if you want to get to Nicholas, we're your best shot. Alice considered this. She looked at the bunker walls, then at her own hands. I suppose I have little choice. I do not know this world anymore. Very well. Lead the way. The journey back to the Pure Syndicate's fortress was quiet. The sun had finally dipped below the horizon, but the heat remained, radiating off the black sand like an open oven. The sky was a bruised purple, lit only by the distant, crackling lightning of the storm surrounding Dracula's tower. Alice walked between them. She didn't complain about the heat. She seemed entranced by the destruction around her. She stopped occasionally to touch a dead, petrified tree, or sift the black sand through her fingers. This was a valley, she murmured. There were rivers, villages, humans and vampires lived. Well, not together, but close enough. He scorched it all, Bahadur said grimly, to create an environment where his kind could thrive during the day. He destroyed the ecosystem to save on sunscreen, Alice muttered, shaking her head. Typical Nicholas, always a dramatic solution. As the fortress came into view, the tension returned. Izuku could see the torches on the walls and the silhouettes of guards patrolling. Listen, Izuku said, stopping the group. The people in there, they've been fighting your kind for decades. They aren't going to be happy to see you. I am not their kind, Alice said, her voice turning cold. But I understand. Humans are quick to fear what they do not understand. Just let me do the talking, Izuku requested. They approached the gates. Captain Frederick was waiting for them, leaning over the battlements. When he saw Izuku and Bahadur, he waved for the gates to open, but as the heavyweight groaned inward and the torchlight fell upon Alice's pale skin and red eyes, the mood shifted instantly. Hold! Frederick shouted. Close the gate. They've brought a prisoner. No, a monster. She's a survivor. Izuku lied, shouting up at the wall. She was trapped in the Ravenblade bunker. Look at her eyes, boy. Frederick roared. That is a vampire. Archers. Wait. Bahadur stepped forward, his voice booming. Captain, we retrieved the intel. She helped us. She is not an enemy. The archers hesitated. Frederick looked conflicted, but before the standoff could resolve, the air temperature spiked. The knights at the gate scrambled aside as a figure strode through the courtyard. Commander Syra. She wasn't wearing her usual white coat. She was in combat gear, and her katana was already drawn. The blade wasn't just glowing. It was roaring with orange flame, so hot the air distorted around her. I sense it from the command room, Syra said, her voice low and dangerous. She stopped 10 yards from Alice. The smell of ancient blood. Rotting. Powerful. Commander, don't, Izuku warned, stepping forward. Step aside, mercenary, Syra snapped. You brought a leech into my home. A progenitor, if my senses are correct. She raised her sword. Ignite, max output. The flames turned white. The sand at her feet turned to glass. Die. Syra moved. It was a blur of motion, a flash step that closed the distance instantly. She swung the katana in a horizontal arc aimed directly at Alice's neck. It was a kill shot. Fast. Brutal. Unavoidable. Alice didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. She simply raised her left hand. Clang. The sound was like a church bell being struck by a sledgehammer. A shockwave blasted outward, knocking Izuku and Bahadur back a few steps. Dust plumed into the air. When the dust settled, the fortress went silent. Alice had stopped the blade with her index finger. The white-hot flames licked at her skin, but they couldn't burn her. It was as if an invisible barrier of sheer pressure was keeping the heat at bay. Alice looked bored. Rude, she stated simply. Syra's eyes went wide. She gritted her teeth, veins bulging in her forehead as she poured more mana into the blade. Burn. Why won't you burn? You wield the sun, Alice noted, observing the blade, but you wield it like a child holding a sparkler. She flicked her finger. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't a spell. It was just a flick. The force of it launched Syra backward. The commander flew through the air, crashing through a stack of wooden crates and slamming into the stone wall to keep. She slumped to the ground, coughing, her sword clattering away. The knights screamed, leveling their spears. Enough! Bahadur roared. He placed himself between Alice and the knights, his arms spread wide. Look, Bahadur commanded. She is not attacking. She defended herself. If she wanted Commander dead, she would be dead. Syra pulled herself up, wiping blood from her lip. She looked at Alice, her eyes filled with a mix of hatred and terrifying realization. What are you? Syra wheezed. Alice dusted off her white dress. I am the reason you are fighting this war, Commander, and I am here to end it. The War Council. An hour later, the four of them sat in the war room. The tactical map was cleared. Frederick stood by the door, hand on his mace, sweating profusely. Syra sat opposite Alice. She hadn't sheathed her dagger. "Talk," Syra demanded. "And if I don't like what I hear, I will burn this fortress down with you inside it." Alice sighed. She looked at the wooden map pieces, moving a small black tower to the center of the table. "To understand why I must kill him," Alice said softly, "you must understand who he was." The room seemed to darken as Alice closed her eyes, pulling them into a memory she had replayed 1,000 times in the dark. Flashback. 520 years ago. The world was different then. It was colder, wilder. I was alone. I had been alone since the moment I opened my eyes in shallow grave, with no memory of a mother or father. Humans hunted me. They called me a witch, a demon. I learned to hide in the shadows, to feed on rats and deer. Then I found him. He was dying on the side of a dirt road. A soldier, abandoned by his unit after taking a spear to the gut. He was pathetic. He was crying for his mother. I should have left him. But I was lonely, so terribly lonely. I gave him my blood. I turned him. I expected him to be horrified, to try and kill me like the others. But he didn't. He looked at me with worship. "You are an angel," he had said. His name was Nicholas. For 100 years, we were happy. We traveled. We gathered others who were cast out. We built a sanctuary in the valley. It was a place for us. We didn't hunt humans. We lived off livestock. We were peaceful. But Nicholas, he changed. The immortality rotted him. He began to see humans not as neighbors, but as cattle. He gathered followers: Silas, the warrior who loved battle more than breath; Alastair, the brute strength; Lilith, the woman who looked at Nicholas like he was a god. I tried to stop him. I told him we could not live like monsters. "We are gods, Alice," he told me. "Why should gods bow to sheep?" The betrayal didn't happen on a battlefield. It happened at a dinner table. It was the anniversary of the sanctuary. Nicholas proposed a toast. He poured the wine himself. He smiled at me, that same warm smile he had given me when I saved his life. I drank. It burned. It wasn't wine. It was a mixture of concentrated holy water and wolfsbane, distilled to a potency that would kill a lesser vampire instantly. My body seized. I fell to the floor, paralyzed. I looked up at him. I couldn't speak, but my eyes begged him. "Why?" Nicholas stood over me. He didn't look malicious. He looked disappointed. "You are too soft, Alice," he whispered. "You are the progenitor. Your blood holds the power of creation, but you refuse to use it. So I will use it for you. They didn't kill me. They couldn't. I am the source. If I die, the bloodline weakens. So they put me in the coffin. They sealed it with art's loss of time. The last thing I heard before the lid closed was Nicholas telling his generals to drink deep. They have been draining me for 5 centuries. Every drop of power they have is mine. Present day." Alice opened her eyes. The room was silent. Even Frederick looked horrified. "He stole everything," Alice said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "My trust, my family, my blood. He turned my sanctuary into a slaughterhouse." She looked at Syra. "You hate vampires because they kill your people. I hate them because they are a perversion of what I created. We are not enemies, Commander." Syra stared at her for a long time. Slowly, she took her hand off her dagger. "Dracula protected," Syra said, her voice gruff. "The Tower of Night has 3 floors. Each one guards a seal." "The generals," Alice nodded. "Silas, Alastair, Lilith. They are monsters," Syra warned. "Alastair can shatter stone with his bare hands. Lilith wields magic that twists the mind. And Silas was the strongest," Alice admitted. A flicker of pain crossed her face. "He was loyal. Once. We divide and conquer." Izuku spoke up, pointing at the map. "The army distracts the main force outside. We infiltrate the tower. We take out the generals one by one." Bahadur nodded. "A strike team. It is risky, but it avoids a protracted siege we cannot win." Syra stood up. She looked at the three of them, a child reaper, a fallen knight, and the mother of all vampires. It's a suicide mission, Syra said. A small, feral grin tugged at the corner of her mouth. I'm in. They left within the hour. The trek to the Tower of Night took them through the heart of the corrupted valley. The ground here wasn't just dry. It was dead. The sand was black powder that coated their boots. Izuku checked his status. Level 101 party. Black cross full. He looked at his team. Bahadur walk point, his shield arm ready, scanning for threats. He was a shield. Syra walked the flank, her hand resting on her katana, radiating heat. She was a sword. Alice walked in the center, weak but resolute. She was the objective. You realize, Alice said softly to Izuku as they walked, that even if we win, I have nothing left. My world is dead. Not dead, Izuku said, looking at the stars struggling to shine through the purple clouds. Just broken. We can fix broken things. Or, Alice murmured, looking at him with curious red eyes, we can build something new. Ahead of them, the tower loomed. It was a jagged spire of obsidian that pierced the sky, surrounded by a swirling vortex of purple storm clouds. It looked like a giant stake driven into the heart of the world. At the base, the massive iron gate stood wide open. He knows we're here, Bahadur said, tightening his grip on his sword. Of course he does, Alice said. Her face hardened into a mask of cold, regal fury. He wanted to show off his throne. Izuku summoned his scythe. The purple energy hummed in the dark air. Let's go, Izuku said. Class is in session. They stepped across the threshold, and the darkness swallowed them whole.